Upavi takar. Upavi. Utishayu lautra quatta larga.
Steve Englehart and Frank Bronner in 1974 were in an apartment sitting around dropping acid, eating mushrooms, trying to make their deadline for the reemergence of a Marvel comic book character. He was on the C team. He wasn't Captain America or Iron Man or Thor or anything like that. His name was Dr. Strange, Dr. Stephen Strange. And they reimagined Dr. Strange into the Marvel Universe by starting the whole thing over again. And those 74, 75, 76 comics were all entheogenic. And we're coming up just next year with the Marvel's rendition into cinema, Doctor Strange. And what I look at when I look at the entheogenic community is that ayahuasca may be medicine, MDMA or Iboga or Hawaiian baby rosewood, whatever, but mushrooms have always been special to me. I don't see them as medicine. They can be used as medicine because you use anything for medicine. You can use water. Water is medicine, but you don't call water medicine. You say, well, let me get a glass of medicine. Psilocybin is a tool in its first and foremost principle as a tool of exploration. And I think what we need in this community is more Dr. Stranges. We need more sorcerers. We need more magicians. You know, this is the land of Hogwarts. You know, you should be grabbing them mushrooms in October and, you know, going off to school. To be able to explore, to be able to look into the darkness and say, hey, I'm not looking for the light in the darkness. I'm looking for my eyes to adjust to the darkness so I can go deeper into the darkness. I know and understand that this is not just a feel-good, friendly bubbles and fairies type of thing. It's also hard work. It's deep work. It's the places that you don't want to face inside of yourself and inside of the multiverse.
What is real? What mysteries lie beyond the reach of your senses? At the root of existence, mind and matter.
His heart rate is getting dangerously high.
He looks all right to me.
So we need more Dr. Strangers. We need those folks who are going to go out and encounter the entities that are in these places and spaces because they are there. And they're not all likable and lovable and, you know, the swirling divas of Hindu pantheons.
Dark places where powers older than time lie, ravenous and waiting. You think that this material universe is all there is? Who are you in this vast multiverse? Mr. Strange? Meet. Thoughts shape reality. Have you seen that before in a gift shop?
There is the Mahabharata there also, where there's war, where there's malevolence, where there's horror, where there's fear, and all of those things are there. And we've still pushed forward and moved forward because it's something that we have to do to become something more. And I think that's what entheogens do for us. It is something to make us more than what we are as being human beings. I think it ushered us into the human and will eventually usher us into the transhumanistic realms and then ultimately into something that is unimaginable. Ray Kurzweil and them, when they're talking about the technological portion of this, they're talking about the technological singularity. They're talking about merging with AIs, downloading consciousness into supercomputers. But we already had the supercomputer, we already had the hardware, we already had the software in the entheogens that nature provided us from the beginning. When we were walking on the Sahara, you know, came from outer space. But outer space is nothing out there, it's all inside. When we look at Alpha Centauri and Vega and Orion and Sirius, they're not out there, they're inside. So when we look out, we're only looking at a reflection of what's inside of us. So these things came through the multiverse to be able to pair with us, for us to be able to merge with them, and they deliver their information to us, because the models that we built in the world are only models that we are taking from ourselves. So software, downloading, uploading, you know, improving hardware, putting in the new chip, erasing the whole hard drive. All those things are part of what happens inside of us. And it's in our community, it's in the literature, it's in the lectures. We just have to start embracing. And when I was talking about Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics is driven through entheogens and LSD and mushrooms and things like that. All the same two guys that were hooking up Dr. Strange by sitting in an apartment in New York dropping acid mushrooms are the same ones who created Guardians of the Galaxy and the Infinity Stones and the whole new Marvel universe that's going to be put out in the movies, and it's coming out in the movies in Avengers 3 and Doctor Strange and the Black Panther. All of those movies are a reflection of the entheogenic usage of those 60s guys who came back from Vietnam and were utilizing entheogens, and they moved past the old guard of Marvel, which were Steve Ditko and Stan Lee and those older guys who had brought it up to a certain level. The Black Panther's coming out in 2016 also. It's going to talk about Wakanda and the highest level civilization of Africa, that it's not a fantasy. They didn't just make these things up. Jack Kirby, who was really the brains behind Marvel Comics, not Stan Lee. Stan Lee was the executive. Jack Kirby, who created the Black Panther in 1966, during the black uprisings in the United States and here in the UK and other places around the world, brought the first black superhero to Marvel Comics. And he talked about Wakanda, which was a mythical place, but Wakanda is not a mythical place and is not a mythical people. And the Black Panther is not a mythical comic book character. You have the Black Panther Society in Africa, which eats the Amanita pantherina mushroom to get the powers of the Black Panther. They use the Black Panther mushroom for the powers of the Black Panther. But they use the same mushroom in Japan, and that mushroom delivered what was called ninjutsu, or the dark Japanese martial arts. Ninjutsu came out of a mushroom, a psychedelic mushroom. As a matter of fact, for those that don't know, I'm a martial artist. That's what I do as my work. I teach martial arts, ancient and traditional and contemporary African fighting sciences. And all of the martial arts that you see have entheogens that go along with them. How you think, you know, the Kung Fu guys, you know, they're standing on a blade of grass or jumping to the top of the tree and, you know, 1,000 arrows come and they just knock them out of the way. That's all entheogenic use. Because they would have battles where they never engaged physically. They took the entheogen, stood back, and they battled entheogenically between the two warriors. So nobody was killed, but you found out who had the best skill and the most skill. These type of things went on, they were common. You know, we had masquerade warfare. Where you see the masquerades in Africa, you may see a bunch of raffia or somebody on stilts and things like that. They did battle the same way. This was all part of the sensibility of the entheogenic use in ancient times, in the ancient world, that is re-emerging now. We're only at the beginning. People always say that the 60s was a failure. Oh, the hippies are gone and the 60s was a failure, they got rid of. No, that was just the beginning. It's a baby now, just learning to walk. This conference is just standing up on your feet, waddling and toddling. But when the next generation gets into this, because they're already there anyway, they don't want your schooling, they don't want your knowledge, they don't want your information. They want to go into the multiverse and bring back a new human being. As Moody was talking about earlier, a new archetype, a new paradigm. Because being a human being, you can't do nothing. You know, what, you're gonna work 10 hours a day for 60 years to sit down and die? That's a great life. Or are you going to stand when you want to come to this conference that you don't have to get on a plane and fly 5 hours to Dublin, stay in Dublin for 15 hours sitting in a chair, then come to the Breaking Convention conference running down the hallway to get here? No, you want to come to Breaking Convention, you just go ding-a-ding-a-ding and boop. You know, okay, I'm ready to give my lecture. You know, or we do the conference like this. We all Friday night at 11 o'clock. Take 30 dry grams of psilocybin mushroom. We lie down in the dark. And we all meet up in a place in the hyperdimensional realms and have the conference there. And the conference, you know, we have great food, great times, you know. You don't have to worry about sitting in a chair. You can just be floating in the lotus posture, you know. This is my vision. Beyond the human being, beyond what we are now. So when we first encountered these mushrooms on the Sahara and ate them and said, oh man, this is something different, you know. Now let's make some more sophisticated tools. Let's, you know, let's make a wheel. You know, I've been envisioning this building. It's wide at the base and it goes to a point. What are we gonna do with it? I don't know, but let's make it. But most folks don't know that the Merkut, or what we call the pyramid, is a time machine and a teleportation device that, you know, they're for teleporting to different spots. Well, that's another lecture. Man's relationship with cattle, because these mushrooms are prophyllic, they grow on cow dung. Kemet, or Egypt, has a very developed secret pharmacological entheogenic culture inside of it. That's the secret of Kemet, of Egypt. That's where they got how to build pyramids and Tekken and all those different types of things. They brought back what they saw in their sojourns by utilizing the tree of life, which was the sacred acacia, which was DMT, mixed with the Syrian rue, also the sacred mushroom, also the lotus with some other things, mixed with the lotus. They downloaded into the macro world what they saw in the world of the heavens. And so when they saw these things built in light, out of light in the hyperdimensional realms, they came back and they built their civilization around what they saw in their sojourns, and they built out of stone and granite what they saw in light in the hyperdimensional realms. So Wasir, or Osiris, or the Lord of the Perfect Black, the one who is the master of the underworld, represents the underworld that the mushroom mycelium grows in, the land of darkness, the underworld, before it springs into the light. So this is a representation of a psilocybin mushroom on my right and Ansar Wasir Osiris on the left. He's in his mushroom form because it's the knowledge of the dark world, the underworld, that Osiris brings in all of His Majesty and understanding and things like this. Africa, we don't separate spirit from everything else. Everything you do is spiritual. It ain't no, we're gonna go to class tonight and do the lotus posture or the dead dog, or we're going to church and sing a hymn. No, everything you do is spiritual. When you go to get a bucket of water, that's spiritual. The most spiritual thing you can do is farm. They say, do you meditate? Nope, what do? I plant beets and potatoes. That's spiritual. There's no better meditation than you standing there hoeing the weeds out. You got to concentrate so you don't hit your foot. You have to make sure that no weeds are left. Everything is spiritual. So we don't separate the spirit from the matter, the spirit from our work. Khalil Gibran said, work made visible is spiritual. Paraphrasing. Work made visible is spiritual. So what I'm saying is that we're approaching, or we're in the middle of a singularity. The last 100,000 years has been a singularity. We think it's been a long time, but it's been only a blink in the time as far as our relationship and the Earth's relationship to the rest of the universe. So it's only been like that. We've only been human like that. So we're in the middle of a singularity. We're in the middle of a movement, and each and every one of you are at the forefront of that movement of us becoming something different. So as I said at the first Breaking Convention conference up the road in Canterbury, I said we need to take more. We need to be responsible in taking that more. In other words, you don't just jump into 30 grams, you incrementally move that way. And there's nothing wrong with coming back down if you have to. And there's nothing wrong with never doing that if that's not what you're here to do. But for those people who have the wherewithal and the tenacity to be able to go into the higher doses, I think that is the way to go. So psilocybin as a tool of exploration, because we need more Dr. Strangers, as I said earlier. We need those who are going to encounter those beings in the multiverse and sojourn with them for knowledge, for power, for understanding, and bring those things back and say, hey, you know, I saw a jinn named Ulba who was powerful. He tried to trick me out and trick me into killing myself, but I'm still here. He's not. But this is what it's about. It's about becoming more. And Africa, although many things are still secret, has been at the forefront of this movement of the progression of the human into the next level since we became human. And I think that this movement is moving forward. I think that there'll be a lot of difficult times, you know, because the ayahuasca thing is going kind of, it's becoming kind of touristy and things like that, and the tourist doses and things like that. But people who are serious, who are dealing with this type of medicine and changing their lives with it, I think it's a very positive thing. But psilocybin is different. It's a whole different animal as far as the journey is concerned. There's no bottom to it. You can't get to the bottom of it. Nobody knows what it is. There are no experts. I've been doing it more than 40 years. And, last year they threw me a loop. I was like, I'm gonna take 35 grams and it ain't no big deal. I'm moving up to 40 and things like that. But it threw me for a loop. And I'm no different than anybody else. I'm not the badass and all that kind of stuff. I'm just a person who wants to know. And I'll make the sacrifice to know what this thing is about. But never think that you got a handle on it. That's all I'm saying. Each one is different. And you can do it 40 years or 50 years and think you got a handle on it and lay down in that bed in the dark. And the next thing you know, you down in the basement looking at the wall saying, what happened? So I don't have any more time, but thank you very much. I appreciate you. Psilocybin, which I'm going to talk about today, the mushroom, the magic mushroom, and it is magic. Ayahuasca may be medicine, or it is medicine. You call it the medicine, but that equates sickness, meaning that, oh, I have to take the medicine, meaning that I'm sick. Well, I don't consider myself sick. Mushrooms are magical. It is the quintessential hallucinogen of this planet. It is a knowledge-based organic technology. I don't want it to butt heads with anything else saying that, oh, this is the best, but it is the oldest, it is the first. How do we know that? Because it is whole within itself. All of the others are alchemies. Grasslands of Africa and the Sahara many hundreds of thousands of years ago, and you're looking for food in the hunting and gathering phase of human beings, you had a mushroom sitting on top of the cow pie. This is the relationship with cattle. And as Terence McKenna said, in the natural environment, it could be on a 12-inch stalk with the cap on it the size of a dinner plate. So if you're walking and you encounter this and you're looking for food, you're going to try it at least once. And that's what they did. It imparts a mystery that is just as much a mystery today in 2013 as it was 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. Psilocybin is whole within itself.
And what happens in nature is we take wood chips, we add mycelium, and ultimately soil is created. Mushrooms are the grand molecular disassemblers in nature. They are the soil magicians. And the end consequence of the decomposition of plant and animal forms result in soil. These are the interface organisms between life and death.
In the book The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, Mr. John Alegro, who was commissioned by the State of Israel for research, substantiates the taking of the magic mushroom by the ancient Semitic fertility cults in their sex worship, which predated and influenced modern-day Judaism. If you go back, not to the Bible, not to Genesis, but to the most ancient writings in the world, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Rig Veda, you will find that in the ancient nations of the world, they had all the same identical stories. The high priests of Israel would go out in the morning mist to find the manna from heaven. Those of you who have had the opportunity to study carefully will know that the word manna from heaven actually means mushrooms.
Some of these old myths and legends that you get in the Old Testament, with roots going right back into ancient Sumer of the 4th century, 4th millennium, and perhaps much earlier than that. The thing was becoming a nicely complete picture, and that's really what the sacred mushroom was about.
And there's many books have been written about the subject of the magic mushroom in the Middle East, and I think we all know that in the Middle East there is the problem with hashish for thousands of years, and the drugs have been floating around the Middle East for thousands of years. We find it in the Bible, the magic mushroom. We find in the scriptures that that which is referred to as manna from heaven is a word which means mushroom. Therefore, the high priest of God would go out in the morning, and of course, that's where mushrooms grow, is in the mist, in the dew, in the morning. And they would pick the mushroom, the manna from heaven, and of course, consuming the manna from heaven, they began to talk to God. The manna from heaven was actually a mushroom, psilocybin, the magic mushroom.
That bread and wine sacrament is in the Dead Sea Scrolls already in the pre-Christian time. They talk of the bread and the wine of this messianic banquet, the Christ banquet, when all the followers would be gathered at the foot of the Christ and they would be partaking of the bread and the wine.
And the only thing that lines up culturally with this in dealing with the whole Indian pantheon is the blue mushroom, because that is what is associated with the cow.
But clearly mushrooms have inspired religion.
Yes.
And I teach these workshops on gourmet and medicinal mushrooms, and one of these workshops is a very spiritual guy. And he said, "Paul, I've been sent here." And I said, "Really?" And he says, I'm a devout Christian. I'm in Billy Graham's inner circle, and a bunch of us take psilocybin mushrooms as sacraments.
Jesus
and it's brought us
Christ.
Closer to Jesus, closer to our religion. Now, I don't care if you're Muslim or Christian or Hindu, the idea of these mushrooms making you feel the spiritual universe, more spiritually connected, given your cultural heritage and your reference points. But he said these are extremely important.
And that is the mushroom that was documented in the Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, where John Marco Allegro alleged that the entire Christian religion was essentially a misunderstanding, and it was really all about the consumption of these psychedelic mushrooms and fertility rituals.
but that was their portal. They had their big revelation through psychedelics. So the connection between psilocybin and magic mushrooms and religion, I think has a lot of credibility, and there's lots of great examples of that. There is that connection. I've always thought it curious that psilocybe cubensis is such a religious provoking mushroom. And yet cows are highly revered as being sacred. Well, I would think you would keep the mother of the mushroom sacred.
Yes,
you want to protect the
sure.
resource. But again, these are at times when fables and parables and religious rites were controlled by the cognoscente. And they were the gatekeepers of knowledge that was too powerful for the general population to understand or appreciate, and so they protected that knowledge.
Right.
And that's the rule of most religions, is that the inner circle, holds the keys to the kingdom. And what's happened with Orthodox religions is they create institutions where you have to pay tithings in order to have a gatekeeper to have a contact with God. There's a lot of really interesting books that have been published that show art, going back hundreds of years, even into the late 1300s, showing Christian art where mushrooms are pretty easily seen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of history to that.
These mushrooms have been used for millennia by indigenous cultures for insight and healing. What many people don't know, you guys know, is that from the 50s to the early 70s, there was a large body of scientific literature documenting their clinical benefits. These are meaning-making medicines, meaning-making molecules. And what strikes me and what's remarkable is we're wired for these experiences, these incredible mystical experiences that one dose can generate. At the heart of the world religions lies this mystic core, what the great Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy. Mystics and ordinary people for millennia have these incredible peak or mystical experiences. And these experiences of transcendence are wired in our nature. And while it involves the drug psilocybin, it's not a drug study per se. It's about these experiences, again. These naturally occurring experiences throughout history that occur naturally and can be reliably generated with this incredible medicine. going to read you some quotes from some people who were in our study. These are quotes about their experience with the psilocybin after their session and the months and the years after their session. All these people had cancer, and some have since passed away. This changed my life, referring to her experience. I can't even imagine it, fear of cancer. I felt this constant state of becoming. I felt gratitude like I never felt before in my life. I felt totally welcome. Death doesn't matter. From a person approaching death, death doesn't matter. As we just heard, life and death are a continuum. Where does one end? Where does the other begin? I experienced that everything is eternal, and that all of existence happens in every moment. And finally, everything is love. And we're going to speak about love a little later on, because most people in these experiences talk about this incredible sense of love that changes how they live in the moment and changes how they approach death. The sense of unity, a profound sense of the interconnectedness of all people and things. Everything is one. The noetic quality, coined by William James, a profound sense of encountering ultimate reality, whatever you want to call it, or incredible ultimate knowledge. Sacredness, feelings of awe, humility, holiness, and wonder. Deeply felt positive mood, peace, love, and joy. To overwhelming degrees, people in these experiences are weeping for this incredible experience that they're experiencing internally. Ineffability. It's impossible to describe. Words truly fall short. And what I think is the most important feature, or likely the most important feature, is this sense of transcendence. People experience a sense of transcending past, present, and future. Space-time as we know it. And that sounds wild. Transcending this consensus reality we share today. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote, "Healing is the personal experience of the transcendence of suffering."
Mushroom mycelium represents rebirth, rejuvenation, regeneration. fungi generate soil that gives life. The task that we face today is to understand the language of nature. My mission is to discover the language of nature of the fungal networks that communicate with the ecosystem. And I, in particular, believe nature is intelligent. The fact that we lack the language skills to communicate with nature does not impugn the concept that nature is intelligent. It speaks to our inadequacy of our skill set for communication. We have now learned that there are these languages that are occurring and communication between each organism. If we don't get our act together and come in commonality and understanding with the organisms that sustain us today, not only will we destroy those organisms, but we will destroy ourselves. We need to have a paradigm shift in our consciousness. What will it take to achieve that? If I die trying, but I'm inadequate to the task to make a course change in the evolution of life on this planet, okay, I tried. The fact is, I tried. How many people are not trying? If you knew that every breath you took could save hundreds of lives into the future, had you walked down this path of knowledge, wouldn't you run down that path of knowledge as fast as you could? I believe nature is a force of good. Good is not only a concept, it is a spirit. And so hopefully the spirit of goodness will survive.
This timeless dementia can foster non-attachment to this body, to this suffering, and can cultivate a connection to something more enduring within us. What does persist? And some people report a connection to something outside ourselves. Some say even outside biology and outside consciousness. And they report incredible experiences of gratitude, equanimity, compassion, and a deep appreciation for being alive in the very moment they have. Albert Einstein, who I think was a modern mystic, wrote, "The most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical." And so many people spoke about love, which was remarkable. They spoke about a love and kindness towards themselves as they approached the end of their lives. They spoke about a love towards other people in their life and throughout their lifespan. And they spoke of what I just find stunning, this incredible, larger, broader kind of cosmic love. That love is the ground of all being. I like to use the Greek word agape, of kind of almost like a divine love. I want to read to you a quote from one of the patients. I'll need these to see. His name was Patrick. He was in his 50s. He had an awful metastatic cancer. He passed away a year and a half after the study was over. I had the complete privilege to work with him. He was an incredible, incredible person. And he wrote this about his experience that day on the couch for 3 or 4 hours in this altered state of consciousness. He wrote later, "From here on, love is the only consideration. Everything that happened, anything and everything that was seen and heard centered on love. It was and is the only purpose. It was so pure that sheer joy was indescribable, and the bliss. And in fact, there are no words to accurately capture my experience, my state, or this place. I know I've had no earthly pleasure that's come close to this incredible feeling. No sensation, no image of beauty, nothing during my time on earth has felt as pure and joyful and glorious as the height of this journey." And he had a great life. He was a journalist, a musician, he owned restaurants, he had a great full life. "I took a tour of my lungs," he wrote. So in his experience, he went into his body for part of it and could see the tumors. He wrote, "There were nodules there, but they seemed rather unimportant. I was being informed to not worry about the cancer. It's minor in the scheme of things. The more important work is love. My life has changed in ways I may never fully understand. But I now have an understanding and awareness that goes beyond intellect. That my life, that every life, that all that is the universe equals one thing, love." Patrick rated this experience as the single most spiritually significant experience of his lifetime, and among the top 5 most meaningful experiences of his lifetime. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen monk, wrote, "Our true nature is the nature of no birth and no death. Only when we touch our true nature can we transcend the fear of non-being or of annihilation."
Baran sayu guarbati kala. Guarbati? Sras! Uhay guarbati. Ubargo sayu tu si daha. Usay di yudi yauga daha.